Russia separatist rebels are blaming each other for the ceasefire violations. Trump also phoned Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and promised to restore peace. But between commitments to support the Ukrainian leadership in Kiev and improving relations with Putin, it remains to be seen what Trump will do. Pro-Russia rebels fired artillery shells into the government-held town of Avdiivka a few days ago, despite the warring sides vowing to withdraw heavy weaponry from the area. Thousands of town people got caught in the crossfire. They're without water and electricity.
They bombed my house. I have no words. I'm crying all the time. I suffered 2 heart attacks. I lost sight on my left eye. I don't hope for anything. I started my life under Stalin, but I've never seen such a mess. We've fallen really low.
Let the fighting continue, even if it is scary, because at least here you feel normal, like yourself, whereas in Western Ukraine we are nobodies, we are refugees. They say you're a person who caused the war. You caused it and now you pay for it. That's what they say.
Republican Senator John McCain is among those who see the latest developments in Ukraine as Vladimir Putin testing Trump's resolve in Europe. In a letter addressed to the US President, McCain said that this surge of attacks began the day after he talked with you by phone is a clear indication that Vladimir Putin is moving quickly to test you as a commander-in-chief. Well, let's bring in our guests. Joining us from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, is Alexei Haran. He's professor of comparative politics, University of Kiev Mohyla Academy. In Moscow, Sergei Markov. He's the director of the Institute of Political Studies and also a former spokesman for President Vladimir Putin. And finally, from London, Lilith Gevorgyan, who is an analyst with IHS Global Insight and specializes in Ukraine and Russia relations. A very warm welcome to all three of you. Sergei Markov, is that what has happened now, this dramatic increase in fighting, the violations of the ceasefire, because of that phone call between Trump and Putin?
Not isn't because telephone call between Trump and Putin, but because no telephone calls between Trump and Ukrainian so-called President Petro Poroshenko. By increasing fighting, it was some kind of possibility for Petro Poroshenko to ask Donald Trump to give him the call and support, first of all, again. We know that United States is leaving the Ukraine because the main goal of neo-Nazi coup and terroristic junta in Ukraine was to undermine the popularity of Vladimir Putin and Russia. It doesn't work. Vladimir Putin's popularity stable on the level of the 85%. That's why United States withdrawing its support to the Kiev repressive neo-Nazi regime. And that's why Petro Poroshenko decided to start this war again. But we hope that nevertheless new administration of the United States, so as European Union, will repeat and repeat to Petro Poroshenko just only one program. Minsk II should be fulfilled. Kiev should immediately stop any fighting. Kiev should adopt the law on the election on Donbass, and Kiev must start immediately direct negotiation with leaders of the appraisal anti-fascist Donbass.
Okay, you raised many points there. Let me bring one in with Alexei Haran. This latest increase in violence, I'll go back to my original question, is it because of that phone call, or, as Sergei is saying, is it because Poroshenko wants it to happen that way?
Listen, first of all, it's very difficult to speak in such a tone when one side is accused of being neo-Nazi, terrorist junta, and so on and so forth. Do I look like neo-Nazi? Listen, this is a crazy tone for discussion because what we have in Kiev, this is democratically elected government, which is recognized by all the countries of the world. And definitely it's not for Russia to teach us about democracy. We know what is a democracy, so-called democracy in Russia. We know pretty well about that. So first of all, I would urge my partner from Moscow to refrain from such words, because these are Russian regular troops which are on Ukrainian territory and which are killing Ukrainians. Now, as to your direct question, well, we don't know exactly what happened during the phone calls and what was the Putin decision, but perhaps this is one way for Putin to test the ability of a Trump administration to react. How strong is he? So this is one of the versions. Definitely it's not in Ukrainian interest to destabilize the situation because we are losing lives. We are losing lives, and because we are a democratic society, it's very well
escalated, although I have to say it's controlled escalation, is a way of controlling the country.
All right, Sergei, so what then is Russia's end game as far as Ukraine is concerned? I mean, do they like the status quo? Does it serve them well, or do they want more?
Of course, Russia does not like such situation very much, because what we have in Ukraine, we have a violence of de-Russification of the Ukraine. Ukraine, you know, it's mostly a Russian country. If you go to the banks and ask what kind of language people use in Ukraine when they want to get money from the banks, you know
but
that
it's still, whatever you say, it is still Ukrainian.
I'm saying Ukraine is mostly a Russian country. It's mostly Russian speaking. And Kyiv is first in many centuries a Russian capital. What we have? We have an attempt of de-Russification of the Ukraine. We have attempt to make Ukraine anti-Russia and to make Ukraine enemy of Russian forever. That's why they impose to the Ukrainian people acting government who include terrorists, clear terrorists, who use governmental terrorism against millions of Ukrainians.
All right, let me put that to Alexei. I mean, how do you feel about hearing that, Alexei, that actually Ukraine is Russian, should be Russian, and
well, if you saw me, you saw that I was laughing, you know, because these things, it's very difficult to react. But you know, it's interesting that actually Mr. Markov is repeating what Mr. Putin is saying, because Mr. Putin said that Ukrainians and Russians are one people, are one ethnos. So actually it demonstrates what Putin wants regarding Ukraine. He would like to, do you hear me?
yes, carry on.
Do you hear me? Yeah, so he would like to actually restore some kind of the Soviet Union with Ukraine as part of it. He doesn't recognize the right of Ukrainians to be a nation and to decide by themselves. As to the languages, I would like to stress, yes, we have Ukrainian-speaking Ukrainians, we have Russian-speaking Ukrainians. But what is interesting? It's interesting that they are united in reaction to what Russia did in Crimea and in Donbass. What would be a reaction if Russia, in violation of all the treaties, invaded Ukraine? Well, it's easy to understand. So definitely now the support to Russia, to ideas of some kind of customs union with Russia, they collapsed.
Okay, let me bring in Lilith, if I may, and I'd like to go back to my original question, whether Trump's perceived support of Putin has emboldened Russia when it comes to eastern Ukraine, and then Trump's phone call to Poroshenko when he promised that he would restore peace and stability, which is a little vague. How are the leaders responding to this, and what do they believe it holds in store for them?
Not only Ukrainian government, but the governments of former Soviet states have been anxiously following the election campaign in the US and, of course, the outcome. They were anxious because they realized that, and it's not a recent thing, for many years, to manage to withstand Russian pressures to become part of the political union that would be led by Russia were counterbalanced by closer relations with the West. However, having inward-looking US, a president who puts America first and is not really very much interested in investing political or financial capital in what they see as remote states, former Soviet states, is a problem. And of course, from Russian perspective, this is great news. At least in the short term, there will be some sort of political vacuum that was created already towards the end of Obama's second term. And Russia is quite the opposite of what the US is doing. It's expansionist. The recent polls suggest that every fourth Russian believes that they should bring under Russian control former Soviet states, even if it means using military force. That is quite disturbing. So I think having that opportunity where there's a political vacuum, when West is engaged in its own domestic problems, full resolution. Now the problem is that at least from Russian perspective, returning control to Ukraine over the Ukraine-Russia border will be a massive loss in terms of the leverage that Russia has currently on this country. Ukraine with borders that it cannot control is not an attractive partner when it comes to EU or NATO, and I'm talking about the long-term plans. Therefore, having this a low-intensity conflict that simmers and every now and then becomes escalated, although I have to say it's controlled escalation.
Well, thank you for watching, and I will be bringing you more videos maybe tomorrow, and y'all have a great day.